Morning. Welcome to the press conference announcing the 171st season of the New York Philharmonic. Seems like yesterday. But you know, what you're seeing up there is going out into cyber world on their website of the New York Philharmonic and WQXI, and we welcome all the viewers. Today we're going to have a number of guests as we've had in the past, but I wanted to start off by welcoming all of you, really thanking WQXR for hosting us for a second year. This is a wonderful space. I think many of you have come here and heard lovely concerts. I don't know if Graham Parker and Laura Walker are here, but anyway, thanks to them if they are. And I wanted to say that this has been a real pleasure to work with Alan these last 3 years. This is the 4th season of Alan's that we are announcing, and that also seems just like yesterday. I mean, I still have the image in my mind of introducing Alan to the orchestra, announcing it first to them at Central Park in 2008, and I announced to the orchestra that the next music director standing behind the tent, and then Alan walked out with me, and I mean, a real marriage was born at that time, if I can say that. And I can't tell you how pleased and proud I am of having made that appointment. We've just come back from a 3-week tour of Europe, and in not inconsequential places: Paris, London, Amsterdam, Cologne, Frankfurt. And I have to say that in the many tours I've done over the last 30 years, this is probably the most gratifying tour. From a musical, organizational, audience reaction of our contemporaries and the people in our business, which is, for me, is the most important element as to how we are received and how quickly they come back and say, well, when is the next time you're going to come to the Concertgebouw? And can we do it in the next couple of years? Those are the things that are gratifying to me. And everybody knows, and it's fair to say that when we announced Alan, I didn't have any problems, but a lot of people said, well, you're taking a big chance. I didn't think we were taking a chance, and I think the 3 years that have gone by so far have proved that. The orchestra is playing better than I've ever heard them. I think the programming is something that is extremely stimulating. As Alan has always said, there's a story, there's the sort of the new with the old. And I'll let him talk more about it, but I just have had a wonderful time these 4 years working with him, planning. And I think my success to Mr. Van Biesen, who starts next week, is going to have a real ride. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Alan, and say publicly thank you.
I'm moved to hear you speak this way, and this is a bittersweet moment for me. I've grown to love making these season announcements, and it's hard to believe that this is the 4th one, because time has gone by so quickly. It does seem like yesterday, and I remember these moments also extremely well. But it's bittersweet because this is the last one I'll do with you on stage together, and I felt incredibly supported, incredibly strongly and warmly supported. You may not have thought you were taking a chance, but I felt you were taking a chance when you appointed me, and I was very, very honored and challenged. And the fact that it has gone as well as it has, I owe enormously and overwhelmingly to you, because, you know, as I've been trying to shape a vision, my vision, it's really been useful, and I can't overstate the importance that it has meant for me to feel supported and to be confirmed in the choices that we're making. And I think we've taken a lot of risks, and the fact that you were willing to go with that has really meant a lot. And I know that I personally, but not just me, everybody in the organization will miss you enormously. So if we could just take a moment and salute Zarin Mehta for everything he's done. Thank you.
Well, these last 3 seasons, thank you, have been really quite special. You know, I've been sort of reflecting back on some of the things we've done, and I go back to the opening program that you came up with. We had talked about René Fleming, whom you knew, and of course the natural thing would be to say, sing some Mozart, some Strauss, but no, we did Messiaen. And we started with a world premiere. I think that was a good way to sort of announce your arrival. We've also said that it's not necessary that every opening night gala has to have that kind of challenging approach. And we've been very successful in mixing, as I say, and that's, I think, the important element as to what is the right thing at the right time. And, you know, if we did Le Grand Macabre, or if we did Kraft, we did it as part of a normal thing. We didn't end the season with Kraft. We didn't end the season with Le Grand Macabre. We put it somewhere where it was thought of as being just part of a season. And I think that's how music has to be taken. And we're a large organization. We do almost 200 concerts a year. We have an enormous amount of competition from the arts world, the symphonic world, the music world, the opera world. And I think we have to stand up and hold our heads high, and I think we've done that by not being scared to program the way we think is the right thing to do. And after all, in the end, you have to bring the people in. And if you don't bring the people in, then you're not really achieving what you want to do. You're there for that purpose. And I think we've done that in those places. Kraft was sold out. So was Le Grand Macabre and Vixen. We've done other things like that, you know, mixing the Missa Solemnis with the new piece of Magnus. The fact that Magnus was our composer-in-residence brought some extraordinary new works to us. I think that was a very valid expression of our musical approach to programming.
We're here obviously to talk about some specific new ideas and new plans that we have, but I will take a moment to just say that I really feel that's true, and that we want every evening to feel like an event. We want our programming to be wide-ranging and passionate and sincere, and when we do a special project, in a sense, it should be normal. People should come to expect us to do special projects. And it should feel like, oh yeah, that's not a weird thing that they're doing just because they feel obligated to do it, or because there's pressure from whatever quarter to explore different areas. No, that's what we do because we believe in it, and that's the music that the orchestra should be playing, and that's the music that our public should be hearing. So hopefully we achieve some of those things with what we're about to talk about.
Well, I'm glad to say that we're going to be joined by our recently appointed artistic administrator, Ed Yim. Ed joined us last June, and we confirmed him in his position in September. And I have to say, I'm just thrilled and delighted. He's full of energy, full of ideas, and I think you and he get along wonderfully, which is extremely important. So why don't we ask Ed to come up? He can talk about how we've put this 171st season together. Ed?
Welcome, Ed. You dove right in from day one, and there was no ramping up period. And I'm going to make it the same situation here, and throw it over to you. Since you came in as a newcomer, I'm imagining that maybe you were able to look at what we had done over the last few years with fresh eyes. How has it been just joining what I hope was an exciting place already, and how have you felt that you could take what we're doing and make it your own and help us out, and observations about what we do? I'm curious, actually.
Well, thank you both for the warm introduction. And I have been living in New York ever since Alan took over as music director. I moved here in 2006 and have been coming regularly to concerts at the Philharmonic. And I think as sort of an outsider, if you will, before I joined the organization, there were a lot of things about the Philharmonic that I admired and that I was excited about as an audience member before I became a staff member. The fact that there were these interdisciplinary artistic collaborations going on, lots of interesting composers becoming part of the Philharmonic family, the way programs were put together, and especially the theatrical experiences that you and Doug Fitch, who we'll introduce later, have brought into the concert hall at Avery Fisher Hall. So my attitude coming in was just to keep those ideas coming, to amplify what has been done, and maybe give a little, suggest a few twists to things along the way. And it's been so much fun to work with Alan and Zarin, because we really, all three of us, come to the table and there's no sense of limitation. We throw everything on the table, and some of it is good and some of it is not great. And we sift through it together and we balance each other out, and we bring our different passions and our different viewpoints to things, and what emerges hopefully is something that is cohesive and something that all three of us believe in and that the rest of the organization believes in, and that we can provide to our New York audiences.
Shall we dive in
Go
and
into
start?
the season, and I think I'll leave you two to talk about it.
Okay.
All right, we'll do our best.
I want to listen to what you have to say.
Interestingly, Ed, I was already speaking with a member of the press in the foyer before the conference, and a comment was made already about the opening week and the fact that
With Les Fauves.
Yeah, and the fact that our gala performance, that's traditionally the way we open, is not actually right at the beginning of the season, and I really enjoyed the process that led to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the opening of a season is a celebration that goes beyond any single night, and the fact that our opening, the very first performance of next season, it happens to be a subscription concert with Les Fauves Ansnes, with a program that includes Your First Rite of Spring with the orchestra, and that later we have a very festive evening with our board member and our favorite violinist, one of our favorite violinists, Itzhak Perlman, and some orchestral
we have lots of
showpieces.
favorite
We have lots of favorite violinists. Yeah. Beloved, one of our most beloved. It makes for a great opening of the season. The Kurtag, I think, came around by Les Fauves suggested that.
I've loved making programs with Les Fauves over the years because he thinks in a very, for me, consequent and intelligent way. He likes to combine pieces that may not suggest themselves at first blush to being presented together, but they always have a resonance that is revealed by the juxtaposition, and this is such a case. He'll be playing Beethoven Piano Concerto along with this smaller sized work of Kurtag, Quasi una Fantasia, and he's such a probing and intelligent musician. It just totally fits into, I think, the way we think about programming.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a few other highlights of your programs in the season, I think, to amplify on.
Well, we should talk about them. I mean, Zarin has already mentioned a number of things that are important to me and to the New York Philharmonic. Anders Hillborg will be writing a piece for Renee Fleming. She's been great, and we've talked about lots of ideas, and she's definitely a case in which many of the ideas that we've talked about haven't come, but we were planning many things, and the first such collaboration is this world premiere commission of Anders that will be performed in Carnegie Hall.
Mm-hmm. And we continue with the Nielsen cycle that has started and that we are in the middle of this season.
We've performed and recorded the second symphony of Nielsen last year. The third is coming up this year. Next year, we're turning to the concertos, and this is particularly exciting for me because I got to know the clarinet concerto and the flute concerto through the recordings that Lenny made with Julie Baker and Stanley Drucker years ago, and now to be able to come back and do these same pieces with our current principals, Robert Langevin on flute and Ricardo Morales on clarinet, I think has a kind of symmetry that I find appealing. I love the music of Nielsen, and I think that it is, for whatever reason, not considered as seriously as it probably should be. Sibelius has had his day. Mahler certainly has had his day, but Nielsen is a composer who I think speaks to everybody, and I had this thought when I was talking to the Da Capo record people. You know, I said, you know, Nielsen is the composer that the Philharmonic can really play incredibly, and with a real insight and stylistic purity and passion, and they were very excited. So we hatched this idea to make a traversal and record the entire symphonic works of Nielsen.
That's great. And joining Robert and Ricardo will be the Danish violinist Nikolai Znaider playing the violin concerto.
Yeah, he's incredible, and he won the Nielsen violin competition, and he's just a through and through musician, and I particularly love the way he plays this concerto.
Yeah. Later in the season, you come back to a work that has been very important, as I would say, a cornerstone in your relationship with the Philharmonic.
You must be referring to the Ives Fourth Symphony.
I am.
Thanks for the chance to talk about it. No, it is. You know, there have been some pieces that have come back already in my time here as music director, but this is the first work that I consciously thought, you know what, let's do it again. I did the Ives Fourth Symphony. I think it was back in 2004. As part of an Ives festival that the orchestra was presenting. Of course, I was a guest then, and it was a huge, and I'm not going to lie to you, daunting challenge to put together that very complicated program with the amount of time that we had to do it. There were a number of programs in a very compressed period of time, and somehow it all came together. And the experience in the concert, it was the first time I had ever done the piece, was really life-changing for me. I think it's one of the great 20th century masterpieces. I mean, amazingly, it's from 100 years ago or something. It's thought of as a contemporary work, but it's not really. But what he does feel so modern and so contemporary and so transcendent and so telling for human nature, and it really touches a spiritual realm. The orchestra was unbelievable, and they put it together in a way that I really, to this day, don't quite understand, and I admire what they did. So we decided, okay, this is the first work actually that I'm consciously repeating with the New York Philharmonic. We haven't actually repeated any other work. Some concertos have come back with different soloists and on tours, of course, but as a programming decision and a subscription week, this is the first one, and I'm proud to do that, because I do feel that was a kind of real meeting between me and the orchestra, and it meant a lot to me, and I'm really excited to bring it back to New York City, because I think it remains one of the most important works in the repertoire.
When you did the Ives Fourth before you became music director of the Philharmonic, was it on a program that was all Ives? I'm trying to remember.
No, it was, there were Mahler and Copland songs. It was a fascinating program, and if that's not enough already, Berg 3 pieces for orchestra. It was incredible.
We're taking a slightly different direction with Ives 4 this season. I
It's
think.
all American on this program. Bernstein Serenade with Josh Bell, and a new work by Christopher Rouse that we've commissioned, and we'll hear more from Chris later when he comes to the stage.
Yeah. I wanted to maybe mention one other thing that I'm really looking forward to, which is we've had a long relationship at the Philharmonic with the American composer Stephen Stuckey, and we've co-commissioned a work with the LA Philharmonic where he was the composer-in-residence and the consulting composer for new music for a long time. He's writing a new symphony, actually. He's calling it deliberately a symphony, which is a title that he has avoided for a long time, but I think he's ready to assume that mantle. So we'll look forward to that piece coming into being as well.
Yeah, I love his music. We're actually playing a piece of his this week, Son et Lumière, a very early work from over 25 years ago. In this week's program, he's been an important person in the Philharmonic family, and this will be a nice new project.
There's sort of inadvertently a little Stuckey festival going on because Pittsburgh, with Manfred Honeck, who will conduct the New York Philharmonic next season for the first time, is bringing the Pittsburgh Symphony to New York shortly with a new piece by Stephen as well. So New York will get to hear a lot of this great composer. And speaking of great American composers, I thought maybe this might be a nice time to introduce the newest member of the Philharmonic family. Unless there were other things that we wanted to talk about first.
No. Yeah, no. It's a good time actually. It's always a good time to introduce Chris Rouse as our new composer in residence. The position of composer in residence has been, I think, a really crucial one in our constellation here, for a lot of reasons. Magnus Lindberg, who's been doing it for the last 2.5 years, is first of all a great composer, and he's a complete musician. He's a pianist, he's a conductor, and I've said it before, but the in-residence part of this notion has been really important, and I was curious and optimistic, but really gratified in the event as Magnus really became a true family member, not just for the orchestra and the organization internally, but I think for the audience. And you could really feel that over the years when he would come out on stage. Each time there was more and more a palpable sense of recognition. He wrote pieces for us, he performed with us, but also he was very important in advising us and bringing his point of view and his sensibility to the programming. Not just new music, I should say, because he's interested in the very connections that we're interested in, but it's been a real success. So when Chris agreed to be his successor, I couldn't have been more thrilled, because Chris has long been one of the composers that I've admired. I think he's got an ear for sound and a sense of human psychology, if I might be so bold, that is really penetrating and really keen. And I literally have never heard one note of Chris that doesn't actually speak to me as a deep and powerful philosophical statement. So the fact that he's a professor at Juilliard and is already well connected to the New York community is also extremely important. But I think that he will join the orchestra and serve in some ways as Magnus has, but also bring his own personality, obviously, to the situation. So shall we ask Chris to join us on the stage? Welcome. Thank you, Chris. You were I think when I asked you about this idea, you said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Did
you know what you were saying yes
and
to?
That's exactly my question. Did you have an idea of this kind of the range of things that we were going to ask you to do, and how do you feel about what you are being sort of tasked with?
Oh, well, I'm thrilled to be doing this. Magnus Lindberg is a good friend, so actually we had spoken before. I just was curious to know what he was doing before you even invited me.
What did he say, actually?
That was privileged conversation. Mm-hmm. But no, he was thrilled. He was very happy to be here and enjoying the experience very much. And I did serve as composer in residence long ago with the Baltimore Symphony, so I've had some experience with that kind of an organization. So I was just delighted, though, to be asked by the Philharmonic, which is an orchestra that is very, very dear to my heart, has been since I was a child, and to have a chance to work with them and with you, who've been such a great champion of my work, is something that is 100% pleasurable for me. I know it will be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I've for those of you who may not be aware, I've been doing recordings of Chris's music with the Stockholm Philharmonic, my former orchestra, and we really got to know each other well because Chris wasn't there all the time when we were rehearsing and performing, but I would call him and ask him questions, and the musical discussions we had about his own music were fascinating for me. And there's some composers that you feel they're not quite aware of what they've actually put down on the page, but that's not the case with Chris. It's so well considered and so musically conceived, if I might say. So we'll be doing some older works and some newer works. Is there anything you particularly want to highlight for us?
Well, of course, the new piece that I'll be writing for you is something that's still a little amorphous. There's not much I can tell you about it yet, but I'm kind of getting some vague sense of what that might be. It's an opener, concert opener. Phantasmata is actually the first real orchestra commission I had back in 1985 from the St. Louis Symphony. So it, I guess, qualifies as kind of a golden oldie. It's from my wild child days.
They're just coming to an end, I think, these days.
I don't have the energy to write all those notes anymore. You know, every page is just full of tutti fortissimo writing. Seeing, which the orchestra commissioned, and I believe premiered in 1999, and then did a few years later again, both times with Emanuel Ax, for whom I wrote it. I'm thrilled that it's being revived yet again, and we'll really be excited to hear it.
It's important to bring back works that I think have been commissioned by the Philharmonic, and to bring them back and work them into the repertoire that way. And I'm really glad that we're doing that.
Oh, I am too.
Well, unfortunately, it is often the case, and perhaps I might even say deserved, but some new pieces don't get played that often. But when it's a real composer and a real piece, as is almost always the case, I think with your music, of course we should do it. And I'll never forget my first time seeing in Aspen. That was a performance with Manny, and that really struck me. And I haven't done it, so I'm looking forward to that. Ed, do you want to take us through Contact, and maybe if Chris has any comments, because we've all really worked on this together.
Absolutely. Contact, the new music series of the Philharmonic, which Alan started when he began his tenure as music director, has I'd say we're experimenting, which is the whole point of Contact. And Chris, you've brought some composers to the table for our musicians and for Alan and me to look at, whom we were not familiar with. And I think that's really exciting that you've already had such an impact on the organization by making introductions to people that you believe in. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe Andy Akiho and Jude Vaklavic?
Well, I'm thrilled to have been able to have that kind of impact so early on. Yes, these are two young, really fabulous young composers. Andy Akiho actually lives in New York and is a percussionist by training, but is just a fabulously inventive young composer. Jude Vaklavic is actually currently living in Utah, teaching out there, but is a product of the Juilliard School, and also is a very different composer from Andy, but I think also an extraordinarily inventive and talented one. So I'm really happy that the Philharmonic has commissioned pieces from both of them for the Contact series.
I have to tell you that one of the great pleasures of my job is actually getting to send that email to a young American composer saying, out of the blue, the New York Philharmonic would like you to write a new piece. And the response is usually, really? So that's a really fun part of my job. And with Jude's piece and Andy's piece, we're going to do an existing piece by Andrew Norman, who's also a New York composer living in Brooklyn. It will be a New York premiere of a piece called Try. And a tip of the hat, and maybe a bit of an anchor to the program, is one of your, I would say, predecessors in the position of composer-in-residence of the New York Philharmonic, Jacob Druckmann, whose music we haven't done recently very much, and this piece Counterpoise, I think, is one of his most beautiful.
It's a fine work, and I guess he kind of qualifies now as the elder statesman on the program. But it's a wonderful piece of music, and so I'm thrilled that we're going to be doing an all-American program.
Yeah. And then in the spring, we're turning our sights to Europe, and again, you brought some pieces that Alan and I did not specifically know, but were composers that we had long admired. Paul Ruders and Anders Hilborg, obviously, who we have commissioned with Carnegie Hall for Renee Fleming. But this Ecstatic Tivoli piece, you were very keen on, Chris.
Yes. It's a kind of a wild piece. We mentioned earlier the work that Anders Hilborg will be writing for Renee Fleming. But this is another work which shows him at his wildest. He's a fascinating and wonderful Swedish composer, and it's, I think, going to be a very exciting experience for people to hear. Paul Ruders from Denmark, I think, you know, as you know, I'm very high on the music that's coming out of Scandinavia these days, and he's certainly another major voice in the music of our time. Those two works will be played on the Second Contact program, along with an American premiere of Unsuk Chin, Google On.
Right.
And, well, you know actually more about the Jan Robin piece than I, because that was a pre-existing commission, but.
Yes, I actually wasn't around when the Robin was commissioned. Did that? I think it came from one of the orchestra members, didn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing piece, and I'm actually, for me, this is going to be a fun program to conduct, because except for the Hilborg, I haven't played any music by the other three composers, and they're all composers that I've actually been really excited to and looking forward to work with and on for a long time.
I think one of the things about Contact that's really great, and that I think is starting to become really part of the DNA of this series, is that it is a way for the Philharmonic and for you, Alan, to get to know composers that you may not have worked with before, and to kind of start to introduce them to the Philharmonic DNA.
I definitely think of it as there's an experimental component to it, and it's the possibility to try out composers in a way that doesn't have as much heat in a way. And there's nothing less important about Contact, but with the smaller ensembles and with the smaller halls, it has been a great way to get to know composers, and such people as Sean Shepard, whom we got to know through that, has actually become someone that we're looking forward to commissioning in other and for bigger works.
I should take a moment to thank the Metropolitan Museum of Art and Symphony Space for partnering with us on Contact and for supporting our efforts with this. Yeah.
Great. So we need to talk about Emanuel Ax, and actually there's a real connection to Chris, because he's
doing Seeing.
He's doing Seeing. Shall we see if we can make contact?
Manny,
out
are
in
you
space
there?
with Manny?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey,
Whoa.
wow, magic.
Hi.
Hey.
Miraculous as it may seem. Hi. Welcome home. It's great to have you back.
Where are you, Manny?
I am in Philadelphia, almost late for a rehearsal.
Oh, okay. We'll keep it brief.
Okay.
They'll understand, Manny.
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
So Manny is going to be our next artist in residence.
Yay.
And I couldn't be happier. And this is something that we've talked about for a while. So Manny, welcome. We're going to have a great time. We've already had a great time. You've had a long and distinguished history with the orchestra. I mean, amazingly, 100 performances, what was it? Something like that. And a member of the Philharmonic Society now. Huge welcome, Manny.
Thank you. Well, it's, of course, incredibly exciting, and I'm very privileged to be part of this. Any performance with the Philharmonic is a privilege, and this will be very special.
You had very interesting and specific ideas that you wanted to realize. We've done our best to get as many of them into the mix as possible. Do you want to?
Well, we're gonna get to do a couple of pieces which I really love and would love to have a chance to work on with you. The Schoenberg Piano Concerto. I got a note from Catherine Johnson, who said that we're doing Bach, D minor, and Schoenberg, and apparently that exact coupling was done in 1958 by Glenn Gould.
Whoa.
So it's been a while, I guess.
Once again, proving that there are no new ideas.
Exactly. Well, in any case, I'm so looking forward to working on those. The Bach is terrifying and exciting at the same time. I've never played a Bach concerto, and I'm just working away and trying to do my best and, hoping for the best. The Schoenberg I've done a few times, but it's a fabulous piece, and I'm very excited about doing that. And of course, I'm extremely excited about doing Mozart 503 also. The only connection that has to Schoenberg is that Schoenberg at some point, I believe, said that there's a lot of music that's left to be written, great music that's left to be written in C major. And there's nothing better in C major than K503. So I guess that's at least some kind of connection. And I get to do Chris's piece again, Seeing, which I've done a number of times now. It has an incredible number of notes. It's very, very hard. I think that each time I've worked on it over the years, I've gotten a few more things to go right. So I'm hoping that this time will be better than the last time. And he's very tolerant about things. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Chris for that.
Manny, have we told you about the 25 concert world tour of Seeing that we're going to be doing? Just kidding.
Well, it's all about Schumann and Moby Grape, another wonderful combination, Berg and Bach, I guess. So I'm sure we'll have an exciting time with it.
Can't wait, and there'll be lots of other aspects to the residency, chamber concerts. Manny's going to play chamber music with the musicians from the orchestra. He'll be playing Schoenberg's chamber version of Das Lied von der Erde, and lots of other things that you will find out about, and you can already read about in our materials.
And the Lied von der Erde is, of course, another connection to the Philharmonic, because when I was a kid, I had an LP of Lied von der Erde in college, and I wore out 2 copies of that recording, Leonard Bernstein. So anyway, I hope we have a wonderful year, and I know that all the concerts that I'm not involved in will be fantastic. So I can't wait to go and listen to as many of them as I can. I hope you have a great week this week. I'm so sorry not to be there, but I'm with another great orchestra and looking forward to that.
Well, you know we're coming to Philadelphia on Friday night, so I don't know if you're around, but maybe we'll be able to say hi.
That's great. So maybe we can see each other.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I'm sure food will be involved, yes.
Yeah, we'll have dinner.
Sounds fabulous.
Thanks, Manny.
Thanks for joining us, Manny.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Have a
Take
good rehearsal.
care. Thanks. Bye.
So we have not so much time to cover a number of things. Shall we thank Chris for joining us on stage and
thank you,
move
Chris.
on? Thank you, Chris. You know, it's always the case, and I guess I should learn doing these things. There's so many things that we want to talk about, and it's so easy to get involved and perhaps too deeply into one area. But the point is that we really want to show you kind of the process and the feelings behind our decisions, and we're excited about everything we're doing. We'll talk about a few, and you can read about the whole season in your materials. We should talk about Bach. I was thinking about Bach when Manny mentioned Bach, because we're going to be doing a lot of Bach, and you've been very close to the people we've discussed collaborating with, so maybe you can tell us about the idea behind this festival, and I think it really is a fascinating group of concerts.
Well, I said earlier that I think one of the things that I felt coming into the Philharmonic was this idea of a festival within the season was very much a part of the planning of the Philharmonic when I got here, but we're taking a slightly different approach this year, I guess, which is that in the past the festival has always been presided over by one conductor who really kind of expressed a personal viewpoint or a personal passion for Stravinsky in the case of Gergiev, for Bartók and Ligeti and those Hungarian voices with Esa-Pekka. This season, starting shortly, David Zinman will be bringing his particular stamp on Beethoven. And for next season, Alan, we discussed maybe taking a slightly different tack, which is Bach can be interpreted in so many different ways and has been historically, that we felt it would be interesting to bring together a group of people who would each bring their own viewpoint on Bach and sort of reclaim it for the symphony orchestra in a way.
Bach is a composer that for a long time has not been played very often by large symphony orchestras, and it's something that I've talked about with Zarin and with Ed's predecessors quite a bit, actually. You know, what is the best way to bring Bach into the Philharmonic world, back into the Philharmonic world. Interestingly, if you read these little one-page profiles of the orchestra musicians, a question that's always asked is, who's your favorite composer? And the overwhelming majority of the orchestra musicians say Bach, and I think there's a reason for that. There's something that is just towering and monumental and universal about Bach. We've all learned a lot from the original instrument movement and the performance practice movement, but I think one unfortunate byproduct of it has been that there's been a sense of trepidation that large orchestras have felt, because for a long time people have, there was a period, and I think the pendulum has started to swing back, or has actually gone quite far back in the other direction, but there was this idea that there was a right way to play Bach, and people were afraid of being blasted for not actually doing it that way. But I've always said that Bach is a composer who can withstand interpretation, and I like that. I like that expression, because it implies that it sort of pokes fun at this idea that there could be a right way, but it also means that the music is open to being played in a lot of different ways, and I think you'll see that in this span of 3 weeks with Masaaki Suzuki, who's a legendary and wonderful Bach conductor. Bernard Labadie will be conducting, and I'll be doing the Mass in B minor. It certainly is music that withstands interpretation, and it's really nice to see the orchestra musicians so excited about being able to play this music.
Our oboe section in particular is very excited about these weeks of Bach, and I just wanted to mention some crossover things, not in the normal sense, not in the record company sense of the word crossover, but the sense that we're very excited to be collaborating with the 92nd Street Y on this Bach examination. Their series of concerts is called Bach Through the Season, and I really want to thank and acknowledge Hannah Aria Geifman, who's here from the 92nd Street Y, who embraced our idea of the importance of Bach and of presenting many different viewpoints. And she and her organization are presenting a series of instrumental concerts, solo instrumental concerts and recitals and so on and so forth to complement what we're doing. As Hannah said yesterday at the 92nd Street Y announcement, we're shaking hands across the park. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to do in New York, and especially with such a great collaborator as Hannah, so thank you. And I also wanted to mention that Andras Schiff, who's a very important part of our family, a very important part of Hannah's family as well, is embarking on a Bach exploration doing the Well-Tempered Clavier at the 92nd Street Y. He'll be conducting and playing Bach Concerti with some Mendelssohn and Schumann with us at the Philharmonic, and he has other recitals coming up through future seasons, really surveying all of Bach's keyboard music, so we're happy to be a part of that as well.
Masaaki and Bernard were not able to be here, but they did prepare a video. Should we take a look at that just to hear them talk about Bach?
Yeah, I want to see what they have to say.
It's important that this very, very important part of the repertoire be accessible to the New York Phil audience.
The major symphony orchestras today, they play very little Bach, and it should really be also an integral part of their lives. So I really welcome this when this comes back.
I have never heard the big, really famous symphony orchestra do this kind of Bach festival.
It's essential to view Bach as the founding father of Western classical music. There had been great music before Bach, and certainly great music after, but I think that all great music has a reference to Bach.
You can't understand Bruckner symphonies if you don't understand Bach. There's a link, there's a connection, a very clear connection between Bach and a lot of the music that is performed regularly.
Bach is one of the rare composers who has very many aspects for any kind of musicians, like keyboard instruments or string or singers or whatever.
There's something for everyone, both for the performer, for the musicologist, for the, I would almost say the scientist in some cases. It's a music that can really cover a very, very wide range of audiences and performers as well.
Everybody who has got ears and eyes and a mind, we all have been influenced by it. And it's a very good thing.
Bach's music is both the ending point of a long evolution and the starting point of a new one. It's amazing to see how little Bach actually invented. He just perfected most of the genres and forms that were available.
I think it's a very good opportunity to see many different conductors doing Bach in different way, and also we can think on Bach's music. And I think there must be plenty of ways of performing Bach.
Some of the audience know this music intimately well, others have never heard it, and both will benefit from it.
I commend the New York Philharmonic for taking the risk of programming things like that. It's about time that the major American symphony orchestras reclaim that repertoire, and the New York Phil has been doing it for a few years, and I'm happy and proud to be part of that journey.
That was nice. Switching gears, rather dramatically, moving to other music that will need to withstand interpretation. Doug, would you like to come join us on stage? Please welcome Doug Fitch.
Doug Fitch.
Yes, I would.
Thank you. I think most of you know Doug from some things he's done in the past with the Philharmonic. It's actually quite a few now. L'Histoire du Soldat, Grand Macabre, of course, has already been mentioned, Cunning Little Vixen. We're not doing a fully staged opera this year. What are we doing?
Well, we're taking it from the opera into the ballet world. I think this time we get to do Petrushka. Petrushka is this extraordinary, I think, probably one of the original mashups of classical music and what came afterward, and modernist theory and dance, and it has even been called the first ballet Gesamtkunstwerk. So as a threshold piece that was kind of tying together elements of that particular cultural milieu, I think it's really exciting to be doing this in a way that's really new, with the entire orchestra present on stage and using, I will say, the orchestra's a number of the characters, hopefully, as well.
I remember the Rheingold. I'll never forget the Rheingold we did together, and one of the I think coup de théâtre that you achieved was in the descent to Nibelheim. The way the stage was lit, the musicians were visible to everybody, and there were these golden lights that shone underneath each musician's seat, and they came up, and as the musicians were toiling away playing the Nibelheim descent music, it became clear that, oh, these represent the musicians. And I thought that was such an intelligent and clever use of the musicians to create this staging. And are you going to be doing some things a little bit in that direction?
Oh, yes, I do hope, I think we will. And with I think it's safe to say that first of all, let me just say how supported I feel by doing this, but getting involved once again in a third time with me and our little company, Giants Are Small, and bringing puppets to the stage of the New York Philharmonic. I don't know if it's been done before, but I'm really thinking that we're going to put some of the puppets in the hands of the musicians, because I noticed that when you write a symphony, I don't know if everybody else knows this, but they write in a lot of rests sometimes, too. So I'm going to take full advantage of those rests, and you'll see how.
I never get a rest, so...
Well, you need some batteries for that, I think so.
Alan, you know, Doug and I were talking yesterday about these projects and what we call them: fully staged opera, orchestral theater, turning the concert hall into a theatrical experience, and how to capture that in some sort of word or title. And it struck me that whatever we decide in the long run to call this kind of endeavor that you and Doug have done over the last 3 years and will continue to do, we're kind of inventing a new genre, I think, which is really exciting.
What I've enjoyed is the fresh relationship our audience can have with the orchestra. It allows them, causes them, or allows them to think of the orchestra in a different way. It takes them out of any sense of routine. The orchestra's still playing, and that's a premise of all these projects, that they have to include music that the New York Philharmonic can play greatly, and that's the threshold. But beyond that, if people can see the musicians, like, I'll never forget Carter running up the aisle during Kraft, or having musicians around the hall, or the procession in Grand Macabre. If any time the musicians are able to show a different side of what they do and show what they feel about the music in a different way, I think that's a priori a good thing.
Yeah.
I've always thought that watching a symphony orchestra concert is as much a visual thing as it is an audio thing. And, I think because we know what an orchestra is, we tend to forget that it was something that was one of the greatest inventions, really, of all time. When you look down on the stage, you see that every single one of those instruments is an extraordinary expression of some invention and creativity that came out of a piece of wood or a piece of metal, and that each one of those musicians has spent his life perfecting the ability to perform on that instrument. You watch, and if there's a way to cause the audience to call to attention this as a visual phenomenon, that's what I love doing this too.
And simply not take it for granted. That's what happened with the famous cell phone incident. Suddenly the music stopped and people thought, oh, wow. It doesn't just go on. They are actually making the music up there, and it's a really.
Just thinking he was one of the composers. I thought he was.
No. Anything that, I'm not saying I'm glad that happened, but just anything that I'm really not glad that happened. But it did have the effect, and I would even say to an extent the benefit of making people realize, oh, wow. This is just not something that you can take for granted. So it's all part of this kind of thought that I think we're working on together.
Yeah,
it's really exciting to be doing this with you guys a third time. So, looking forward enormously.
So are we. So are we.
Thanks, Doug.
You're very welcome.
I know we're running out of time, Alan, but I think that we should say that it's interesting how the end of the 12-13 season came together. As I said, Zarin and Alan and I sit around and we throw ideas on the table and we talk about pieces that we're passionate about and that Alan has been wanting to do and so on. And we always like the end of a season to be a crescendo, if you will, to build to some sort of climax, which Doug's treatment of Petrushka certainly will be. But when we looked at the span of the whole month of June, at the end of the 12-13 season with Il Prigioniero and collaborating with the the Jazz Orchestra of Lincoln Center and bringing Chris's piece Seeing back and combining it with, all these things started to develop into a month-long, very personal vision of music that I think you brought to the planning process.
Yeah, in a way, I can't take credit for it, if there's anything to take credit for, because it was somewhat incidental. But I will say that we were trying to make the end of the season, as Ed said, something special, and there were just too many things we wanted to do. So it was Ed that encouraged me, well, maybe we can do this the week before. And this idea of this final event of the season kind of spilled and seeped earlier and earlier and finally became a month-long event. And so you guys had the idea of actually calling it that. And it does represent things that we're really passionate about.
No, kind of when we took a step back from the planning and looked at it, I realized, this is exactly what Alan probably has on his iPod and is listening to for his pleasure and for his interest. And so we've decided to call it Gilbert's Playlist, the month of June. And I think it'll be really fun and a great way to end the season.
I can't wait.
Good.
Zarin, do you want to come back and try to hit the points that we've, I mean, there's so many.
Neglected,
but,
missed.
Yeah, it's a lot, I know. But
Well, I really wanted to talk a little bit about the tour that will take place in 12-13. I just want to read this. It's going to be the 10th tour under the aegis of Credit Suisse, the 5th tour already with Alan as the music director, and the 7th tour with Alan in 4 years.
7th tour.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? And those are all international tours. This tour has some particular high points that I wanted to talk about. We'll be going back to Turkey, to Izmir and to Istanbul for the first time in 18 years. Our soloists will be Manny and Josh, playing Mozart and Bernstein that we've talked about. We will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Konzerthaus in Vienna with 3 concerts there. And something very unusual, some of you may remember that in 2005, we were invited to Dresden to play for the opening of the Frauenkirche, which was reconstituted after the bombing, the waning days of the war. And it was a tripartite concert with us as the Americans, a British composer, Colin Matthews, who wrote a piece for a Dresden cellist, Jan Vogler, and that was premiered there. And one of the emotional highlights of my career here was coming out of that church after that first night when Lauren conducted the Death and Transfiguration and seeing what those people felt. That tour was sponsored by the Volkswagen company. That may not mean much, except they built a factory outside Dresden after the wall came down, which is called the Transparent Factory. And this is a place where they put together cars, and it's really quite amazing to see it. I'm not a technical person, but I was fascinated walking to see how a car is put together from beginning to end. And this factory became famous not only for that innovation, but a couple of years before that, when the Elbe River overflowed and the Semper Opera could not be used, they transferred the opera performances to the factory. They did lots of receptions for us, and the idea came a year ago, actually to Alan, naturally, saying, wouldn't it be a wonderful place to do craft? So we're going to try and find scrap metal in Germany. That's going to be hard. Dirty scrap metal.
No,
perform.
I'm sorry, Marcus Rotem would say the junk in Germany is clean.
Yeah. And so they're going to go a couple of weeks before, scavenge around, and we're going to perform craft in the factory. So that, to me, is going to be one of the highlights of your career, I'm sure.
Well, it's, I mean, it's actually, it's kind of an obvious idea, I think, because craft is about construction, and,
Yes.
and it takes musical sounds and turns them literally into the building blocks of the piece. So we'll be building our own structures there.
I will come. Credit Suisse has been an extremely important part of our life for the last so many years, and it's because of them that we're able to plan these kinds of tours, and it's a wonderful luxury that we have, and we hope and may it continue forever. Antonio Quintella, who is the head of North America and South America, and on our board, couldn't be here, but he's asked me to read a statement to all of you. The launch of the new season is an important event, and I'm sorry I'm unable to join you all today. As the New York Philharmonic's exclusive global sponsor, Credit Suisse is delighted once again to support the orchestra's coming season of exciting programs. Credit Suisse's long-standing commitment to the arts, which extends back through our 150-year history, is an important demonstration of our desire to contribute to the cultural life of the communities in which we live and work. Our partnership with the New York Philharmonic aligns us closely with another historic institution that shares similar values and traditions, such as our mutual focus on performance excellence and engagement with our communities. Since 2007, we have been privileged to join the Philharmonic for concerts and special gatherings here in New York and in numerous cities abroad. Many of my colleagues overseas are already looking forward to the upcoming Europe tour of spring 2013. We are particularly pleased that the next tour will offer opportunities in our home market of Zurich and so many of our clients and employees can experience the exceptional talents of Alan Gilbert and the orchestra's musicians. The opportunity to share such wonderful and much appreciated cultural experiences is just one of many reasons our partnership with the New York Philharmonic has been so successful. Congratulations on this exciting new season. Well, we all thank Mr. Quintella and his colleagues on this tour that we just did. They did client events and supported us through advertising and various ways, which was quite incredible. So this is not just a commercial venture. They really believe in the New York Philharmonic, and I think we believe in Credit Suisse. I'm delighted to reconfirm that Alec Baldwin, who unfortunately could not be with us, will return as our on-air host for this week with the New York Philharmonic. And Alec is getting busier and busier, but he says, I'm going to do the New York Philharmonic. That's my prime objective in life. So we're thrilled. Now, we've come to the end. I don't think, do you have anything else to say? Shall we throw it open to questions?
I see some questions coming in via Twitter.
Oh, they're written
great.
questions.
Wow, Twitter questions.
What do you think is the most important program of next season?
Well, the whole season I think of as a big program, and I'm not just being flip about this. It's you know, we can't contain all our ideas in one event, and I try to think about programs as a sort of localized event, and then an event that spans weeks, as is obvious when there's a festival, but it doesn't always have to be obvious. But they're longer and longer spans, and even over a period of 3, and now we can even talk about 4 years, it somehow should present a mosaic portrait of what we feel about music and what we want to play as an orchestra and what we feel our audiences should hear. So, you know, it's like choosing a favorite child in a way. You know, I'm happy with every single program we've made. I guess I'm excited about the programs that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. And I urge you to look at the actual listing. You know, we could have gone through lists of guest conductors. We have Lauren Mazel coming back, Kurt Mazur coming back, David Robertson is doing an incredible program. There are a lot of events that I think are going to be really exciting, and I sincerely do hope that every single night will feel like an event. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, for us anyway, we don't have to choose one program, and we play them all, and we play them all as beautifully as we can, and I look forward to seeing all of you at as many of them as possible.
You know, we have a colleague who says that the great organizing principle in the arts is a brochure deadline, because honestly, Alan and Zarin and I can sit around and play with programs endlessly, and oh, if we did this would be a little bit better, or if we move this here, you know, maybe that would make more sense, and we really could go on like that forever, and then our colleagues in marketing and PR remind us that it's time to settle down and announce the season. So
no, and it almost feels like an arbitrary point. Okay, that's the way it stands, and we did literally make changes up until the last second, and I think improvements up until the last second. But finally, we had to just say, okay, that's the way it is, and present it to you guys.
Yeah. Christopher Rouse, known for his loud music. More to come.
There'll be some fortissimo.
I think I would change the adjective loud to visceral. That's one of the things I love about your music, Chris.
Well, thank you. Well, I tell my students the one unforgivable thing is to bore your listener. So it's harder to get people's attention than perhaps it was a few hundred years ago. So a good fortissimo does tend to make the ears perk up a bit.
You know, I'm doing your violin concerto this week, and I haven't done it before, and I was thinking about this yesterday as I was studying it. With all important and great composers, there's something that's immediately identifiable in the sound, and your music definitely has that. It's clear. Okay, that's a piece by Chris.
I think that we have to wrap things up, don't we?
Yeah.
A couple from the audience, maybe? Yeah.
With the redevelopment of Lincoln Center has been really tremendously successful overall. But what about Avery Fisher Hall renovation? Is that just totally on the back burner now?
No, it's not on the back burner, Tony. We've formed a committee between Lincoln Center and ourselves to start the planning process. They still have some money to raise for what they've done already, as you say beautifully, and so it has to follow on to that. But I have no doubt it will happen.
It's a totally separate fundraising project, isn't it? For Fisher Hall, that's not
no,
related to
it will be a joint fundraising between the Philharmonic and Lincoln Center. Definitely.
I think there's
Somebody
one more
in the back. Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Your calendar seems a little more edgy this year. Is that a conscious decision you go into to bring in a wider audience?
You're referring to the season we're announcing now? Well, if that's how it comes off, then I guess that's a good thing. It's not really what we're trying to do. We try to put together programs that we really believe in, and we're not specialists. We're not trying to tick off boxes of numbers of types of music we should play, or there are no quotas. We just try to put together programs that are well crafted and tell a story and illuminate the pieces that we play, and that's what we do. Period. We're not doing anything actually to satisfy any agenda, and so. These programs really are a reflection of what we want to play, and it will shift from one year to the next because people's interests. One year you'll read more mystery novels, and other years you might read more classics or whatever. I mean, it goes in waves, and luckily we're able to talk about long time spans, so that over time, eventually, I think we cover a huge range of music, and that's one of the hallmarks of the New York Philharmonic: the ability to play an incredible range of music really compellingly. That was one of the things. That was one of the comments that actually was repeatedly spoken on the tour. We played a lot of different music, and people said, wow, the orchestra sounds so different for each style and each composer of music. And I think the New York Philharmonic, as New York, as the city in which we live, is a real collection of different cultures and values and abilities and interests, and we try on some level to reflect that all the time.
Chester Lane, Symphony Magazine. A while ago, Alan was talking about Ives' Fourth Symphony, and I've read about this. I think it was the Fourth Symphony that was considered by one conductor so difficult that he needed a second conductor for part of it. Is that a fact? And do you have any comment on the challenges of conducting this piece?
It's really hard.
Please don't put ideas in his head.
No, actually, we do it. We will do it with a second conductor, and I think some conductors, Seiji Ozawa actually said once. He said, "First time I did the piece, 2 conductors. Then I tried it with 1 conductor. Next time, no conductors." That's probably going to be the best performance. But it can be done with 1 conductor, but I actually think dramaturgically it tells the story more clearly when there are 2 conductors, because that's how Ives composes. There are 2 completely different things going on at the same time. They have to line up, but they are not connected, actually. And so to have 2 different conductors makes that point so clear, and it also takes the heat off of me, really.
I remember, Alan, when you were assistant of the Cleveland Orchestra, you made your Salzburg debut as the 2nd conductor in Ives' Unanswered Question.
That was literally the scariest conducting performance I've ever done, because we were up in the
Felsreitenschule.
Yeah, up behind the stage, and we had to climb up this very narrow staircase, and there was literally no room. And the only thing that was keeping us from falling off to our certain death were these small wires that were connected, and there was almost no room. So I'm glad I made it through that performance.
You've come a long way, baby.
I think I'm going to close this off because we have brunch. I know it's not Sunday, but you're invited to Wednesday brunch right over there. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.